So I hate to disappoint you with the lack of the Rocky theme, but quite honestly, I'm not trying to get Facebook to shut us down. So, you'll just have to hum it in your head. And I know you know the theme, so just hum it in your head. And the reason that we will be humming that today is because this marks actually my last guest of season one. The fabulous Katie Nelson is going to be joining us. She's going to be telling us all about. She was actually giving it to me in the green room, like honest to goodness. No joke. She was like, "What are you doing? Let's talk about it." And I am really anxious to continue that conversation because I know that you, as a viewer, as a listener, are going to get tons of really quality information out of this today. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get Katie. Katie, how are you?
Well, thank you. How are you, Trish?
I'm good. I feel energized. I feel like I know we're like at the end. I mean, and please, like people, I'll be back on June 8th with my next round of people. But there's a sense of accomplishment. I'm like, all right, I feel in the zone. I mean, I'm in the flow of how this is going. But let's get the formalities out of the way. Welcome to the Trish.0 show. This is Katie Nelson. Katie, why don't you tell people who you are and what do you do?
My name is Katie Nelson. I'm a sales catalyst. What I do for a living is I'm a business coach. I own my own firm called Sales UpRising, and what I do is teach people how to make more money and love it.
I love that.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, just a teeny tiny little, great big nutshell. Exactly. And so Katie, we were talking before, actually, like right when you got on, and we went right into it. We were immediately talking about sales, and so it's very clear that you have a great big passion, like a passionate heart about selling, the sales process. Was that something that always came naturally for you? Did you was it always the thing, your career path, or was
Who
it something you
knows?
learned to love?
Who knows
Okay.
what builds a salesperson? I actually just did an interview recently for an institution. His name is Gordon Bernhardt, and he interviewed me for a production that he does called Profiles in Success. And so
Okay.
he and I had the opportunity to sit down for a little bit, and I really got to dig into that. And the truth is while I've always sold things, it never occurred to me that this was going to be my career, or that I'd be doing this, or I'd own a company surrounding these ideas and this passion that I have. But it's probably been, I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my third business that I've run.
Right.
So I've been creating my own payroll for about 10 years now. And my favorite thing about Sales UpRising is that I really get to dive into small business and bridging the gap for them between their passion and generating revenue off of their passion. So if it wasn't something that was going to be for me, it is now. Can't keep me
Exactly.
away.
No, exactly. Well, and I feel like sometimes if we're the fortunate few that kind of like pop out of the womb and we know what we're going to do with our lives, then that's fantastic. Especially for those, entrepreneurs out there, who don't think of themselves as salespeople, this can be like a tough thing, that tough pill to swallow. And certainly, from my own background, for those of you who did not, a lot of people do know, but for those of you who did not know, I've been in sales all of my life before I started my company. So being a business owner, is actually the secondary thing of what I've done. But I've always sold for other people. Selling for myself is a much different thing. It's a much different process. It's just, and I don't know if it necessarily has to be. But do you encounter that, between with everyone that you've worked with?
100%.
Yeah,
Right? Because
sure.
it goes from the internal dialogue of I've never sold for myself to I am selling myself, which
Right.
is a really powerful thing and stops some of us short, right? From, oh my gosh, well, what gives me the right to do this? Why is this yes, this is 100% what I love to do, but should I be in this space? And how do I now do this for me? And just, it brings up really interesting conversations in the entrepreneurial brain, right? If you want, it's like this, Trish, if your passion is baking, like you
Right.
love to, and I can't do it, baking, I'm good with recipes. I'm more like Rachel Ray, like you dump everything in a bowl and then whip us something up. Following a recipe is like a suggestion to me. And in baking, you can't really do that. So if you want to be a baker and you want to bake amazing things, the last thing you should do is decide to open a bakery.
Right.
Right? Like that's not really what you should do, because you're going to, in addition to baking, you're going to have a whole bunch of other jobs that are going to take you away from baking.
Right. Well, yes. Right. I mean, because there are 100,000 other things that go into, owning a business.
Absolutely.
And do you find that by the time people approach you, that they are, wide open to, hearing about, hearing the harsh truth about what they're doing, or do you, I mean, it's not a harsh truth. I mean, it's tough love. You're not saying this you're not saying this to be mean or anything, but you will lay it out flat out for them. Or do you find that there's still resistance to, sort of, I guess, bad habits?
Totally depends on the person.
Yeah.
Right. Some people are very, very self-aware and say, I absolutely know that this, I had a 2-minute spotlight, right? Those, you go to an event, you support the event. So whoever's running the event puts you on stage to talk to the people about who you are for 2 minutes. I had a 2-minute spotlight, and I literally stood up there and said, hi people, look, my name's Katie Nelson, and sales is my love language. So if you run a small business and you have a sales problem, maybe we should have a conversation. I mean, really, this was my 2 minutes. And I literally had a woman run up to me and say, oh my gosh, I have to work with you, because I run my own business and I need that. Like, I don't love sales. I understand the importance of it for my business, but it's not something that I love. I find myself always putting it at the bottom of my to-do list. And I know I need to work with you. And then I have people who are like, oh yeah, she's the sales lady. I need to stay away from her. Sales is a really divisive idea. How we think about sales in society is like the used car salesman. Sometimes it makes people feel slimy or icky or boastful, or like they're pushy, right? I need you to.
Yeah. People have a very sort of linear perspective on selling, and they don't know that there's hard selling and then there's soft selling.
Well, and even outside of all of those labels for what we would call selling,
right.
If you're not a pushy person, your sell is never going to be pushy.
Right.
If you are a pushy person, your sell will be pushy. And right. The great news is that you get clients on both sides. Right? If you're very aware of who you are, 100% self-aware of who you are, what you have to offer, the solution that you provide your people, and you literally can stand in a room and talk about what you offer, how you offer it, why one would work with you, right? You will attract the people that are supposed to be with you. And so if there are people who like a pushy sell, they're going to be like all up in your grill if it's been pushy. Yes, give me that, whatever that is. I need that. And if you're a little bit more composed in your sell, and that's just who you are as a person, then people who are drawn to composure will be like, oh my gosh, look at that. I that makes me feel good. I want to go try that. Right? And people forget that it's, they buy you. They don't buy your thing. They don't, there are, how many event planners would you say are literally in your 30-mile radius?
3 billion.
Right?
I joke, but people out there are going to find that very true and very funny.
Well, and I get it.
There's a lot of us.
Yeah, I used to work in the staffing industry. I own 2 separate companies that were in staffing, and oh my goodness, you can't accidentally sneeze, and no pun intended, given the global pandemic times we have, without actually hitting another person in the staffing industry, right? There are a lot of us. I would joke that literally within a 1-mile radius, there were 19,000 people. Someone could look at me and say, you have 19,000 competitors here. And I never felt that way, right? It never occurred to me that that was the case. Just because somebody does the exact same thing I do doesn't mean they do it the way that I do it or the way that my clients like it done,
Yeah.
which is the more important thing. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of that. I insist that no one's ever going to be you. You're not going to ever be me. I'm not ever going to be you. Everyone has a particular perspective and a certain style, and really that's what it kind of boils down to. And as you say, people buy from people. They don't buy from companies. And that's never been truer than it is today, especially in the world of social selling. Or I guess, social media.
right. I was going to say, so
selling.
you're going to have to define that a little bit more for me, right? Because I'm going to be like, okay, so when was selling ever not social?
Right.
This is my favorite thing, right? Sales has been around forever.
Yes.
It's one of the oldest mechanisms of business, if not the oldest.
Right.
And when has it ever not been social? Ever.
Right. It's always about the relationship. Whether people want to kind of see it that way or not. And certainly, and I find that sometimes in conversations that I've had, and again, I keep referencing conversations that I've had with people, just because sometimes I see threads, I see the commonalities, and I'm like, oh, I was just talking with, and I'll get to a certain point where I'll be like, oh, I was just talking with Jackie and Susie and Bob and George, and keep going, and I'm saying, we're talking about the same things over and over again, is that it doesn't feel natural, they feel embarrassed. Sometimes there's like a certain level of embarrassment. Like I feel like they're embarrassed. They may not identify it that way, but that's kind of the emotion that I'm getting from, sometimes the conversations.
So one of the other things that plays into our makeup of how we feel about selling is our relationship with money.
Yes.
So if you feel like trying to sell something says something personal about you, that you need money, and you don't like that feeling embarrasses you, then I don't recommend you own a business. I recommend you go get a job.
Right.
Because every day in your business, if you need to, disassociate with the idea that it's about you personally. Your business itself has needs. Your business, if you look at your business and think of it as a living, breathing thing, it's like a child. It can't provide for itself. You, as its parent, have to provide for it. And the only way you can do that is to sell for it. It can't go do that on its own. So if you want this thing, this business that you've created out of the passion and expertise that you bring, if you want it to survive and thrive and exist in a year, you have to feed it.
Right.
And so if you can't get over the mental hurdle and decide to focus on honing in on your skill set that's selling, because it's a skill set, it's not an innate way of being, it's not inaccessible to anyone. This is something that you can learn it, you can do it, you can practice it, you can hone it, you can get better at it, you can make more money. And you don't have to have a big personality, you don't have to have a quiet personality, you 100% just have to be who you are with your expertise and your passion and your business license, and go out and sell a thing, right? So, but if you, for the people who feel embarrassed, my best recommendation for them is to recognize that this isn't commentary on what kind of car you drive, what kind of house you live in, whether or not you can pay your bills. You've chosen to be a business owner. So first and foremost, if you want that business, like you did it for a reason, right? You have a big thing to give to people. You want to be able to do this. You want to be the best at what you do the way you do it. You want to contribute. You want to help, right? These are all, and there's always, well, I also don't want to have a boss. Well, maybe we need to rethink about that, because you're still going to have a boss. It's just going to be you. So do you have the chutzpah to be your own boss and really keep yourself on track to keep this business running? But, if you can't get over I just can't ask for the business because I'm embarrassed because somebody else is going to think that means that I need money, and whatever that brings up for you, My recommendation is to try practicing it, and it's just for the business. The business is always going to need money. The business will, in fact, never have enough money, depending on your goals, right? If I want to be a $10 million business, it's going to be a while before I get to that place. So I'm just going to have to keep trucking and keep doing the same thing over and over and honing it and polishing it and getting it done faster and generating more margin, right? And improving and building. If I'm looking for $100,000 business, then maybe I can get there a little faster depending on what I charge for my services. But I digress. The point is, if you have a mental block of any kind, whether it's charging what you're worth for you personally, or you have a hang up on money, one, go read the Law of Abundance, learn about vibrational energy, think about the things you can draw into you and for you in creating your space. And two, it's not about you. It's not so much about you. Your business has its own bills. It needs to make its own money so that it can get fed and continue to grow.
Yeah, sometimes I just find, I think it was a little bit of feedback. That's okay. If there's not a little bit of a technical issue, then
were we really here?
Right. We really didn't make much of an impact in the cyber world. But certainly I think it's an important conversation to have, especially now. So for those of you who are watching who are of the events industry, and you know that this is a show where we're talking with event pros, and we're asking them questions about their business. Katie's actually presented at NACE meetings. She presented, I think it was not last September, or was it?
Yeah.
Oh, bingo! Yay! The brain hasn't gone just yet. So it was last September. She presented for our chapter. And so the selling, it doesn't have to be event specific. You can be a mechanic, you could be a baker, you could sell fax machines, you could sell, whatever, essential oils. The principles of what we're talking about today are really consistent across the board. And, one of the first things that Katie laid into me, rightfully so, right? I deserved it, was that I don't have a mailing list for the show, for my business, for what I do. I know I need a mailing list. I know I need to get that together. But it was just interesting to me that you focused right in on that. And I'm like, oh, all right, way to find my weak point right out of the gate, Katie.
Well, here's the thing. I work with small businesses all day, every day, right? And there are a couple of major commonalities in the stopping points of success for sole proprietors or solopreneurs. One is they can't hone in on their niche. Who is their target market?
Yeah.
Right. So even within the depth and breadth of events, right? So nobody should ever say, oh, anyone who's looking to have an event.
Which is a lie. It's a total
lie.
Right.
Right. You wouldn't, a person who's looking to have a tea party for a 4-year-old and 5 of their friends is a different kind of event than a corporate joint venture coming together and what that party looks like.
Right, like a multi-day seminar in Dubai.
Right.
Right, yeah. Totally different things. So, totally different.
Yes, definitely both events. They're both events. They're both going to create memories and an experience of some kind. Depending on who the 4-year-old, maybe there's going to be press. I don't know. But
who knows these days?
There's still different kind of events. And so, you need to be able to say, I am an event planner and I focus on corporate experience, right? Or I am an event planner and I look at taking the smallest moments in your life and blowing them up into the biggest celebrations possible.
Right.
So that your clientele can hear you. But with solopreneurs, one of their biggest hurdles, and it seems so simple, is to be able to define their target market, who they want to work with. What does that look like? How do they get to them? Do they have them readily available to them and close by? Right? So there's that. Another place where solopreneurs often get it wrong. And when I say get it wrong, there's more than one way to butter bread. So for me, getting it wrong is making it go slower.
Right.
Time is the enemy of small business, right? We're already on a clip of, if we don't hurry up and make it in the next 5 years, we're going to be out of business already. So
Exactly.
we've got time, and depending on how much money we have in the bank or how much investment we have in us, we may have less time. So I'm talking about getting it wrong in taking the steps to be able to make your money as fast as possible so that you can do the biggest things at the end of that. So one of the places where they get it wrong is marketing. I have an entire half-day seminar regarding, depending on where you are in your business. And if we just start with, I have yet to make $250,000 in revenue, just top line revenue. The business hasn't generated 250K yet. If you are doing things like creating a podcast, writing a book, creating a television show, you are putting your dollars in your pocket further away from you from a marketing effort. Where you should be focusing is on selling first, right? So that you can understand your client better. This is what we were talking about in the green room, right? Your list is made up of the people that have come into your marketing pipeline that you then qualify depending on how sophisticated your marketing pipeline is, which in the beginning probably isn't very. You don't know the questions necessarily you need to ask to get to the answers that you need in an effort to make the sale, right?
Right.
So it just so happens that what you consider to be your biggest and easiest weak point that I found immediately is because it's a lot of people. Right. More often than not,
sure.
right?
Yeah, I'm sure it's pretty common out there, actually.
Yeah. It's also, it feels more comfortable, right? It's easier to put me on a video or create a platform for me to speak from. If I build it, they will come. That is really only true in the field of dreams.
Right.
And that's a movie, which is Hollywood. And who wants ghosts to show up anyway? That's a whole other conversation. It's not my thing. In an effort for you to build it so that they can come, you have to know what they want.
Well,
you have to know why they buy you.
Yeah. I was actually going to come back on the ghosts, like ghosts in the machine, just a little bit, because I've always found social media, like platforms like Pinterest and Instagram, really very fascinating. Of course, I've invested a certain amount of time to see, if it works, if it's a good sort of sales funnel for myself. And then when I determined that it wasn't, then I'm like, none of this is really putting any dollars in my pocket. Then I took a step back. But yet I still hear that in the marketplace where like, oh, this person has 25,000 followers, so she must be killing it. Well, she probably bought them. They're probably all bots. None of them interact if you look at the engagement rates, but we'll talk about that maybe in another episode of Trish Point oh Show. But when we're talking about perceived sales success versus actual sales success, do you find that just a lot of people like buy into the Instagram dream that they just put way too much stock in all of these, in perception?
I don't think that you can ever put too much stock in perception because that's how you see your life.
Okay.
So your perception is your perception is your perception.
Right.
So can we have too much stock in it? I don't know. I mean, that's how I see my life. So I don't think you can.
Okay.
What I will say is that spending too much time and energy on someone else's success or failure as you perceive it, complete waste of time.
Right. Because that's really not putting money in your pocket.
Right. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? That, as my mother would say,
right.
What does that have to do with you? Is that helping you get to your revenue goal? Is that keeping your dream alive? If the reason why you are researching companies that are like yours on social media platforms to register their success or not, so that you can identify whether or not that's an appropriate platform for you, I would still tell you that that's a waste of time. There are industry reports that can tell you whether or not event planners do great on Instagram and which ones, and then you can see if that's to your market or not your market. I think the difficulty with that is comparing an apples to apples scenario. Before we even look outward to figure out what is successful for everybody else, we literally have to sit down with the pen and the piece of paper and do the harder thing, which is, where do I want to be? Who do I want to be in this company? Who do I want to serve? How do I want to serve them? How much do I need to charge in an effort to be profitable to do so? And how much money do I want at the end of this 12 months? And just focus on that. It's one of the most difficult things. We want to be at the end of our race already. We're not interested maybe in the journey. We want all of the things immediately. We're very much like that as a society. Unfortunately, business isn't. Business requires, there's steps. There's nobody that you see today has skipped those steps. Even if you're talking about Mark Zuckerberg, who created this amazingly now massive thing, and his success for his platform was so quick, he had to go back and learn it all, right? And made some mistakes along the way. Like, he then had to put his head down and figured, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to be the business owner, not just the creator of this thing?
Exactly.
It's all internal. We have to have the vision for our business, the goals for our business first and foremost. Everything else is just noise.
Yeah, I mean, like start with that sort of internal conversation.
Write it down. Make it external. Tell your people, right? Tell your support system. Okay, so this is what I've decided. This is what I'm going to do. These are the people that I want to serve. This is how I'm going to serve them. Do you know any of them? Can you introduce me to them?
Right. Exactly. And then start having those conversations.
That's how you're going to generate your money faster.
Yeah. And certainly, especially, now that people are looking for the things to pivot, there are plenty of people who are having those really tough conversations, right? Because there are hotels that are completely shut down. There are vendor companies, entertainment, audio production, we run the gamut, who are selling off, closing shop, who are really sort of like staring down the barrel of the gun, saying like, okay, how do I keep myself afloat for the next 18 months? Because for some, it might be 18 months before they see money again. Without surrendering that dream, without, how do they get from today, to that point? We were talking about sort of asking that question. So somebody comes to you and is like, listen, Katie, I own a company. My next event is not until, May 2021, and I need to do something in between. So what would be the next question you would ask them, with such an open-ended statement like that?
Well, my next question would be, all right, let's talk about your money. Let's talk about your business money, right? Yeah. So what do you have residual revenue coming in? Do you have any outstanding invoices that we can go ahead and collect on, right? So have we even done the bare minimum of cleanup to make sure that our finances are as strong as they can be? And if we've done that and our finances aren't strong, my next question is going to be, okay, outside of this thing that you make money on in May of 2021, a year from now, what else can you do that is in alignment with your business? Right? What is it that you already do? Right? You've got, and this has to do with them leveraging your expertise, right? So, when I think of event planners, of course, I think of J-Lo in The Wedding Planner.
Right. A lot of people do. A lot of people.
Well, they should. I mean, it was a great movie. It's iconic.
Sure.
So if I think of you like that, and you say that's exactly what I do, that's exactly who I am, right? Then what skills are transferable? Who could you potentially? You've got a list of clients, right? But you also have a list of partners, vendors, people that you call on to put on your events, right? And what can you teach them in the interim, potentially, as an example? It's times like these where we get to get really creative, and people call it a pivot, and I can appreciate that it's called a pivot. I just look at it as creative expansion.
Look, I mean, because at the end of the day, it's really not dissimilar, as an event planner when I add a new product or service to what I do, right? Like let's say I'm someone, well, let's say in kind of let's get out of event planners. Let's talk about maybe an event rental company,
Perfect.
and right, perfect example. And you had 200 Chivari chairs and 10 banquet tables, and that's all the inventory you had when you started. And then you got to a certain point where you're like, you know what? I'm going to buy some drapes. I'm going to offer some drapes. And then you're like, okay, well, you've got the drapes and the tables. People are going to need some lights. So now I'm going to offer lights. So now you start becoming sort of like this full scale production house where you're like, oh, well, now people want me to put it all together. So I might as well just put it all together. And it just keeps growing and building. And this is not a dissimilar process to that, where you're like, okay,
It's 100%.
yeah,
What a fantastic example, right? So
yeah,
look, and now I'm getting all jazzed up. So
let's do it.
fantastic.
Yeah,
So then you're this production house.
right.
Now, you very clearly know back end costs for whatever a Chivari chair is.
Yeah, like a
And
banquet chair. It's the fancy one with the
hey,
bamboo. Yeah,
fancy.
that's it.
Good
Yeah,
to know.
yeah.
And I outsource all of that.
Of course, of
And
course.
banquet tables, and then the drapes and the table drapes that go over the things. You're aware of the back end costs, where the suppliers are for those things, how well they provide for you. So what if, right? Event planners need that knowledge
Right,
just as much as they need you to provide them with those goods. Normally, in the regular everyday run of your business pre-COVID, you delivered chairs, tables, and lights. But now you can actually teach the education, like actually inform people. My clients come to me all the time. The reason why they buy from me is because of the way that I do this. So I thought I would let you know what you should be on the lookout for when you're looking for a production house.
right,
These are, right? Teach me your ways, Obi-Wan.
right.
These are things I need to know. I can use the information from my vendors to better educate my potential clients. To say, okay, so this is why the cost of a tablecloth is X. Right? I know. So now you have to decide, is that look of that tablecloth the best thing? Is that now still the priority? Like, it's all, be authentically curious. Figure out what you can. Now, here's the problem, right? So the biggest problem, and let's just call a spade, Trish. The truth of the matter is that not every small business is going to survive COVID.
100%. Right. We know it.
And the not so crazy part about that is that those are businesses that may or may not have survived the next 5 years anyway. So this is just an escalation point, right? COVID is allowing us to recognize the foundational cracks we had in our business pre-COVID faster.
Right.
And hopefully we'll be able to say, oh my gosh, I've learned so much from this experience. I know how I can do it better, and I'm going to move forward in this way now. And small businesses fail all the time. This is not new to the small business community. It's the business owners that take a look at the challenge and see it as a challenge, not as this massive detriment, but as, oh my gosh, okay, so what else can I do, right? So I know people in the retail industry, another industry that has been hit very, very hard.
Yes.
And have had, or the food industry, right?
Oh,
Restaurants, for example. I know people who own restaurants that have done more business in takeout. It never would have been something that they would have done previously.
right.
Or they did it on such a small scale. It, may or may not have been a line item of cost in their business. And now they creatively expanded to come up with different offerings that nobody would have thought about them for. And they're doing business at a nice clip.
Yeah, right. Because if it doesn't, and I agree with you there. I'm having, multiple conversations with bar and business owners who are saying, well, if it doesn't match my pre-COVID income, it's at least covering what I needed to cover. Like it's good. It really, releases that sense of panic for them. And certainly, kind of circling back onto the conversation of retail, like a recent closure was announced was Pier 1. Well, Pier 1's been on,
I was going to say that's not
decayed
recent, right?
pier,
That's been going on. That's an
right.
ongoing scenario. So
They've
it
been having
happened to have,
issues.
yes.
Right, they've been having issues, and 100%, you're right. It exposes the things that we're doing to to build up our own success, and I think that sometimes, just in my own observation, people let the way other people run their business get into their heads about the way they should be running their own business. Like I've been criticized in the past for the way that I run my business and the way, that it's I value personally like a slower and steadier growth. Like, security is important for me. I'm a self-supporting entrepreneur. I have my own apartment, my own bills. So having that cushion, having just that sense, because we have personal pandemics all the time. I've been laid off twice. I've been this isn't my first rodeo, you know. So
I think I mentioned this is the third business that I've been an owner of, right? So
there you go.
in one aspect or another, and one of those businesses, my very first business, got hit by here in the DC metro area. It's called sequestration and the continuing resolution, and LPTA, which stands for lowest price technically acceptable. And a brand new business, even if generating six figures, if your target client was the government, there was not enough runway to make sure that that could sustain itself. I mean, we had to be expansively creative to figure out what to do with our business.
Exactly, and but I value your input today, because I think that it's really giving a lot of people personal insight, where people really are asking their questions like, am I running the business the way I want to run my business? Like, does this make sense for me, or is it because I see John W. down the street and he's running his business that way, and so I perceive that that's the way things should be done.
For that person, right? So for that person, I would have went, look, you can get on Profit First, fantastic book. That's a great way to run a business. Michael Kalowitz, I don't know, it's over on my wall. But it's a fantastic book, and it really has to do with running a profitable business. When we're talking about running a business as business owners, one of our first questions should be, how long can I afford to not be profitable? And then have it, right? So even if you have a year's worth of money in the bank to be able to have the business survive, so you've given yourself a year-long runway to sell, cut half of it off. Because running a business is like running a construction site. It always takes more time and more money than we know. Always. No matter 100%.
Yeah.
And then two, we're humans. We give ourselves great excuses. So instead of even giving ourselves the excuse of, I have enough money to be able to live for X amount of time, if I say, okay, so I need to get this done in half that time, if I'm going to be able to tell, if I can take the temperature to see whether or not this is a viable business that can eventually be sustainable and scalable, right? It allows us to make less excuses, be more accountable to the bigger vision that we have. When we start out as business owners, I don't think any of us ever really had the idea that all I want to be is a business owner.
Right.
It comes with, it's not about a title for us. Don't get me wrong. We like being the boss. We like being the CEO. We like having created something. But even more importantly, we're looking to get out amongst the people and deliver a thing, like whatever our thing is. Like, get me to the people. Let me help you. I can help bridge this gap for you. I can generate more revenue for you. I can change your perspective. I can make it so that you can have the sexiest event of all time for you, right? Whatever it is. That's what we're looking to do. We're looking to get out our passion, our expertise in a singular way to help more people. And if that's really our goal, it ain't about how John W.'s Instagram feed looks.
Because his goals are different than your goals.
Absolutely. And, to
Yeah.
go back to something that you said earlier, I don't care if they bought the followers or they have 25,000 followers. Why am I spending my brain time and worrying about that?
Right.
Am I meeting my goal? And concentrate on your own paper. It's very much like school. Concentrate on your own paper. Like, fill out your own Scantron. Like, it's
Right.
okay.
Eyes forward, people.
Yes, eyes forward, 100%. This is how I feel about it. Like, knock it off.
Yeah, it's yeah, and it's a rough one, especially especially when you're dealing with an industry that is filled primarily with creative people, like creators, who are not, for whatever reason, either because they believe they are not, or because just innately they are not necessarily of the analytical sort of like eyes forward type of mentality where they're always like woo and pretty shiny things. And I can certainly be that same person where I get like sidetracked by a pretty sequin pillow. But at the end of the day, I recognize that but it's a business, and there are processes, and there's things I need to do to be happy with where I am. So I'm going to focus on that. I'm just going to focus on that, and maybe I'll and again I'll look at these other things. I'll try to implement it, but if it's not working for me, I'm not going to continue.
So back to your Instagram story. So I got some questions.
Yes.
Said, so Katie, I tried it out for me and it didn't work. So I just let it be. How long did you try it for? What was your ask on Instagram? What were you looking to get out of that marketing platform? And why do you think it didn't work? Like these are, and you don't have to answer, right? This is really just for anybody
who's
has,
yeah.
right, absorbed a platform and then put it aside.
Right.
Like, in that instance, it would start with who was your target? Who on Instagram was your target? Did you speak to that target?
Right.
Right? What was your engagement level? Why do you feel you weren't getting the engagement? And for you, knowing what I know, I've got my own opinions about why that didn't work. Ultimately, at the end of the day, have you sold enough to understand what your people want to hear from a marketing perspective?
Right.
Period. And if the answer is, if you've generated less than $250K in income, maybe yes and maybe no. I mean, depending on what you sell, right? If you have one big, huge thing that's $250K that you buy from a corporation, right? Don't ask me in the event space what that's going to look like. I have no idea what that thing is. In the government, you can sell a multi-billion-dollar contract. So
right.
There's all sorts of sizes of things that we sell. And if that's the case, the bigger the thing is, the longer the sales life cycle it is to land that particular deal. If your service offering is 2 to 50K, and on average it takes about 6 months to get there, but you were only on a platform for 3 months with marketing language that may or may not have hit your target, right? Is that the platform? Can we say it was Instagram's fault that you weren't successful there? You as a business weren't successful there? I don't know that we can.
Right.
I think in that instance, we set Instagram up for failure for ourselves.
Well, and sometimes, I know for me, in the past, it's about also recognizing that a target person in your mind may not be in the area you think that they are, or the area that you want them to be. So, if your target person is, like speaking specifically, about the events industry, is someone who does luxury events with an over-the-top style, with a high glam aesthetic, and that is a big budget, that is like 2% of the Washingtonian clientele. It's not. The vast majority are all sort of like lower budget, barnyard, winery, backyard girls, who have a far different list of values and importance that they're placing on that particular event. So where does that girl live? She'll never live here at a rate that's enough to sustain you in business in the long term. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you go overseas? Does that mean that you price yourself accordingly? If that's indeed the person that you want to reach.
There's a couple of things that I heard in that sentence that we don't know for sure, that's actually you writing a story for this business, right? I don't know that particular 2% luxury client, that business can't sustain you, right? For all I know, you came into your business with $200,000 in the bank that you'd saved from your corporate gigs, from all of the things that you had sold in events previously. It's your business nest egg, and you literally have that there so that you can afford the ramp it's going to take to put yourself in that space, create you as the expert in that space to start getting the relationships that you need to make that a viable business. 100%, that's the way it can be done. That's not the majority of people's story from a solopreneur perspective, right?
Right.
I would love to say, yes, all 3 times I started a business, I had this massive bank account that I could just pull stuff out from, and I gave myself a loan. Yeah, it doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
And which is why it's even more important to just sell. Like, before you have a business card, if you know what you want to do, then go sell it. People don't, yes, social proof of existence is a thing, right? So a website is a thing. But I'll be perfectly honest, when I started Sales UpRising, which I didn't think, when I started Sales UpRising, I didn't think that anybody ever wanted to understand how to sell.
Okay. All right.
All I thought was, oh, people want me to sell for them, and I no longer want to sell for them. I'm happy to teach them why this is a thing that they should know and love, just like I do. But they don't want that. They just want me to make them the money, right? Well, so I was wrong. It turns out I was wrong.
Right.
Who knew? Willing to be wrong in this instance. And the coach that I was working with at the time, and she's like, all right, Katie, you don't think it's a thing. Your homework is to go to this conference, sign up for the talks that have titles that you think you could give, or maybe give or improve upon, and go see what happens. And all I'm going to tell you is that before you go, and did I have a business name? I think I barely had a business name. I think the ink was drying on my tax ID number on the corporation, right? She said, I just need you to have an offer in your mind of, if you got a client, what would you give them? Like, what's a value for them? And I was like, oh, I have an idea. So I created the little offer thing that I would move forward in my business. And I left that conference with 2 clients. Didn't have a business card. Don't even think I really had an email address that was official for Sales UpRising. Like, I don't even remember, right? I'm like 5 weeks into the business, and I'm like, I sold some stuff because what I had was what those people needed.
Right.
And and that's the thing, that being able to sell that thing, one, gave me the confidence to realize, oh my gosh, this is a thing. These people are out here. They do want to learn how to be able to generate this revenue and generate it faster. And they understand that they have a sales deficiency, and they want to be able to learn this and get over the hump and provide for themselves. You know, sales is this massively freeing thing. If you can sell, you will never go hungry. It's like teaching a person to fish instead of giving them a fish.
Right. Very true.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
And so I would want to teach everybody to fish if I could. So, well, because, you know, there's all these passions, Trish. Everybody has a value, and I want them to be able to get it out to their people, and they can't do that unless they sell it. Marketing is not the thing. Teaching them for free is a marketing thing, but ultimately, to have the widest reach, you have to be comfortable with selling. So I went and did that. This is what I would give everybody. First and foremost, just go sell. Sell. Practice it. Listen to what your people are saying. Show your expertise. Ask them to do business with you. And if you can't do it after 6 months of trying to sell, then maybe you try and get some help learning how to do it. But if you're never going to be able to get comfortable with selling unless you have the budget for your business to buy a sales team, and that will be another Trish Oak show.
Right.
Maybe being a business owner is not for you.
Right.
As a business owner, I've had to become massively uncomfortable doing things that, you know, I never imagined myself doing. Right? Did you ever think you'd be on video? Did you ever think you'd own a channel of a thing? Did you ever think that that's really what I want to be? It feels all a little too Hollywood for me,
Yeah,
right?
but, like for me, if you had asked me 3 years ago, I would have said no, because I wouldn't have really understood the value in it for me. Because I would have said, and not because it's not a sort of uncomfortable thing for me to be public. I speak in conferences, and so speaking with people and interviewing and doing all this is actually like a very natural thing for me, which I know sometimes can be the objection for me. I wouldn't have necessarily done the math on what that ROI would have been for me. I'm like, oh, why would I bother? Like, I mean, all right. Yeah, like, so if you would have told me 3 years ago, no. But as time progressed and I started seeing the value in creating a podcast, and then I was like, well, what I do in essence is visual medium, right? I'm an event planner, and so ultimately, yes, it's about the relationship, but I'm conveying visual things. So having a visual component is, I feel a very important component of the process of what I do for people.
It'd be really interesting to hear about whether or not your clients agree with you.
Yeah,
Because
well, yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
Right, the theory I don't disagree with. Events are visual things, right? We process them with our eyeballs.
Yes.
Events and what we hear and how we're feeling, the feeling that they evoke, right?
Right.
But is a podcast or this type of medium how they would expect to get that from their event planner?
Right.
Is really the question, right? You can see the correlation so easily as to why this converts. Can they?
Yeah, that's the big question. I've
It is.
certainly up until now, I've received some really great feedback from it. But it's a small sampling for me. And that might just take me like releasing a survey afterwards, or getting more engaged with people, so that I then maybe get like a larger sampling of who I'm talking to and what we're talking about. And certainly, for those of you who are watching, if you have something to say, go ahead, feel free to say it. I know you're not shy people.
Email her.
Email, yes, you can email me.
Send her a note in the comments.
Yeah, all the things.
All the things.
All the things. Just communicate. Right. I try not to make myself hard to find. Or hard to reach.
Come find me. It's a big Easter egg hunt. You're not going to know where I'm at. Right. I think you and I have talked about YouTube before, and I, like you, have a YouTube channel, and I've got subscribers and this and that and the other thing. And on my videos, it's always like, oh, right, what am I supposed to tell you? Oh, yeah, Facebook me, Twitter me, Instagram me.
Subscribe.
Come find me on the web, right? Like, right. I'm all over the place. So if you can't find me, that's going to be find me, because I should be findable.
Right. I'm not hiding.
No.
But certainly, and certainly I think sometimes it's just a matter of, dive in. I mean, for me, one of the best compliments I actually received this week was from Terry Walters, who was a previous guest, and I was actually a guest on her podcast, which will be debuting in the next couple of weeks. And
congratulations.
Thank you very much. And one of the things that she said is that what she loved is that I did not let my lack of technical experience stop me from putting this out. That, like, if you go back for the first 2 weeks, it's the jankiest of videos. I mean, I know Molly Rowland is out there hanging her head, because she has taught me better. But again, as it's progressed and as I learn things and as I understand the value of the content that I'm putting forward, then it's getting better. And
all right. Well, so here you go. So one, to stand up for my friend Molly,
yes.
She would not be hanging her head. She would say, "Good on you. You're not letting the idea of
this is true.
Perfection
yes.
Get in the way of your progress." She says it a little bit differently, but that's kind of the idea, right? You're moving forward with your idea, yes. And getting better, and ultimately being able to potentially utilize this platform in an effort to afford her services, which she's all about 100%.
That's
right?
The goal. That is that actually is the goal.
There you go. And just because we learn a thing, so you've learned how to plug in your your microphone and use your ring
Right.
light and use all of these inputs and outputs. You took a class, you learned a thing on how to do that,
Right.
right? It is in the doing of the thing where you actually learn it,
Right.
right? So
Right.
just because we took a class, we wrote the notes, we actually have to practice. And so the fact that you've been able to, like Terry said, right, it's the progression of where you started to where you are now that is your learning curve, and you continue to improve upon it. So there's nothing bad about that. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I say all that to encourage others, because I know that there are plenty of people out there who are putting out content, and who are thinking of things that they can do, either teach a seminar, like you said, teach a seminar, find ways to monetize your knowledge.
There you go.
And
So this is what this is. I love it. I'm so glad you said it, because if you didn't say the monetize thing, I was going to have to stop you. So one, thank you for talking about monetizing
I
it.
got you.
I
I got you.
appreciate your technological learning curve. What I want to know is, yeah, look at her. She's like, oh no, now I'm starting to get sweaty.
No,
I'm like,
it's just hot, it's just stinky hot in my apartment right now, and I'm trying to keep the volume. I'm
that's
trying
okay. Look,
to.
I'm giving
Yeah.
myself all the credit for putting you on the hot seat.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
it's
okay. You know what? You did. That's all right.
good.
We'll take it. Right.
But here's the thing. So now that you know what it looks like for that, that's great. I'd rather the numbers and the nitty gritty of how long it took for you to make a connection on your podcast, for you to get to know them, to get to know, like, and trust you and understand your value and actually pay you for a service that you offer. What does that look like? When was the last time you had that conversation? When was the last time you even put that on your to-do list or thought in your mind that that's what your business needed to survive? Because the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of content out there, and it is getting to the point of where it can potentially be noise.
Right.
Right. So for you to not be that, you need your target audience and to understand what they need from you more than ever. So the sales conversations are the things that can inform your business to be able to generate the cash that you need to make this bigger, or ultimately just pay Molly to do it. If that's the goal. The goal isn't for you to like hump it so much, and then at the end of the race you're so exhausted and you're like, I'm sorry, I have nothing to give you. I'm all done, right? It's, oh my gosh, this was amazing. I sold all this stuff and now I don't even have to worry about it. Here, let me cut you a check.
Well, right, and to I'm paying it. I'm just multitasking here. See, this is why I need Molly, because I'm constantly multitasking. So she runs a company called Heartcast Media. For those of you who don't know, I've taken several of her classes. She actually does give a class on monetization, like how to gain sponsorships and how to monetize that platform. And it echoes exactly what you're talking about. Is like, great, you did the thing. Now what? Like where are we going? Where are we going from there? And I think that, really, at the end of the day, that's all. That's really what we're kind of talking about. Is that, you are where you are, but what now? Like you can't wait for it to come to you. You have to be strategic about getting to whatever it is, whatever that goal is.
Right.
And sometimes, maybe it's not going to be about money for you, but it still is going to involve some selling on some level, right? Like maybe, I don't know, maybe, you want to be known as like a fitness pro, or whatever it is that your goal is. That you could still, again, use all these principles for whatever that goal is.
You could.
Right. And,
yes.
And so certainly if somebody wanted to work with you, salesuprising.com is how they should reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, if they didn't necessarily want to work with you one-on-one, you've referenced your seminars before. So what I'm getting is that you have like multiple ways that people can work with you if that's what they want to do.
Absolutely. I host events. Those are posted on my Facebook, my company Facebook page, as well as my website, salesuprising.com. If you are just looking for a little kick in the pants every week, take a look at YouTube. But you can find me at Sales UpRising. I come out with a weekly video for business owners to stay on track. maybe change their perception a little bit about their goal as a business owner and how to make some sales. I also run a mastermind. So I run a group mastermind of
Okay.
like-minded solo entrepreneurs who have identified that this is a foundational crack in their business and are looking to work with me to pull up that foundational crack so that they can get to the revenue that they need to be successful faster.
Beautiful. You have a little bit of something for everyone.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, Katie, thank you so much. We're right up now at the 1 hour mark. I did want to be respectful of your time,
Thank
and
you.
of course of everyone watching. So my one wrap up question that and this is it, right? Season 1, season finale. The wrap up question that I try to end every interview with. So everything opens up, and you can go where you want to go and eat what you want to eat. Where are you going, and what are you eating?
100%. I am going to my parents' assisted living facility, picking them up and taking them to our local diner so that I can eat some pancakes and eggs with my parents.
Oh, that sounds like a wonderful, square deal. All right, Katie. So again, for those of you out there, connect with Katie. She's available through all sorts of social media, YouTube, Facebook. You can find her everywhere. And certainly you can find her at salesuprising.com. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Trish.
Thank you. And I hope that you enjoy this wonderful day.
You too. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great day. Mwah.
Thanks. Have a great one.